I heard y'all. I heard you. I heard you. I heard you. I heard you. Listen. So what had happened was life. Life happened. Your girl got a little overwhelmed. So thank you for your patience. But we're back with episode number 2 of the Neighborhood Podcast. People don't talk about the challenge that is associated with the obedience to God. People don't talk about that. It's literally knowing exactly how you're supposed to do something and having the plan made plain in front of you, but still fighting that little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, are we sure, God? Are we sure? Because some days I'm really not. And that's just my truth. I share with you all on episode 1 my entire desire of this entire podcast. My only desire is to create space for people who have a desire to know and love God. I want them to know that there's space for all of us. That's what I'm doing here. So the days that I've just felt overwhelmed or what are we doing here? I have to bring myself back to God told me what he needed me to do for his people. And if I don't do it, I can't wait for nobody else to do it. So here we are. We're back for episode 2, and I'm really excited about what I got in store for y'all today. So last summer, my older sister was preparing to compete in a pageant, and her pageant prep consists of her going to the gym, studying, taking in culture, knowledge, so many different things. But one thing that I assisted her with is in her question and answer practice. She would provide me with random questions she would find on the internet, and I would kind of quiz her and ask her things. So we're in the car riding around DC, and one of the questions was, what is your most prized possession? And she paused and looked out the window. I was like, that's hard. I'm like, yeah, that's an intense question to think about the thing that's the most important to you in your life, the thing that you want to covet and protect with everything you have. What is that for you? And after a little banter back and forth, she said, my prized possession is my health. She's a fitness girl. You know, you gonna see my girl at the gym a couple times a week. That's her ministry, not mine, but we're working on it. But I love that that was her response. And then she leaned over and said, Mila, what about you? What's your most prized possession? And I immediately looked out the window and looked back and said, my prized possession is my joy. My joy is my most prized possession. And she was like, your joy? What? I wouldn't expect you to say that. I would expect you to say something like your faith or whatever. But I explained to her in that moment, my faith is my joy. The reason I have so much joy and I most of the time I'm in a good mood is all correlated to my faith. It's all correlated to me understanding that God has a plan for my life, me understanding how God feels about me. That's what keeps your girl giggly 95% of the time. My joy, which is my faith. I feel like we're not talking enough about how faith in our reality contributes to our attitude. It contributes to how we show up and move throughout space. For me, I've been told, I once had a therapist tell me that I was obsessed with being happy. Girl, I ain't forget about that. And for me, it's like, no, I'm not obsessed with being happy, but because I have an understanding that things are always going to work out for me because there's someone else in control of my life, it allows me to move through space a little easier. It allows me to not let certain things bring me down too hard. It allows me to when I feel like someone's giving off weird energy or weird vibes, it allows me to kind of not necessarily match their energy, but take note that this has nothing to do with me, you know? Crazy because you haven't been freed from that. You haven't fully taken the time to understand that this ain't about us. We are not in control. When you release that control over your life and have a deeper understanding that we're literally just we're here on earth doing God's work, you will move differently. The things will feel less heavy on your shoulders. The way that you allow shortcomings and people's responses that are less than, the way you'll just behave differently. You'll let things affect you differently. It is such a lighter load to carry through earth, through space, through life, knowing that someone else has gone before you and taken care of it. Maintaining your joy in Christ can feel like a full-time job. A full-time job. It has homework and it has things that you have to maintain. Like your joy is like a garden. You got to water it. You also got to keep the weeds out. And when I say the weeds out, people that bring negativity into your life, let them go. Let them go. As a girl's girl who's a proud girl's girl who loves the girls and is for the girls and about the girls, it has been hard for me in chapters of my life to be like, I'm not a mean girl, but something doesn't feel right here. The people you keep around you bring energy. And I know people don't think that's real, but like the old heads always say, you're the company you keep. And that is so real. It took me for me to get through my 20s to understand that deeper. You really have to be sensitive about the folks you allow into your space. Other people's vibes and waves and stuff. If you up here on a high and every time they come around, they down here vibrating low and whatever, it's like, pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. Your joy is sacred. Your joy is sacred. And if your joy is sacred, you have to be very, very intentional about who you let into your space. I have people always say, Mila, you have so many friends. No, 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 babes. I know a lot of people because I'm a kind person. But when it comes to the intimacy of your heart, the intimacy of your mind, and who you share those special things with, you have to be careful. You have to be careful. And it's like, it sucks that sometimes you have to walk around on guard and having your energy and heart protected, but not everyone was raised the same, which we all know. And not everyone has had a radical encounter with God that causes them to be cognizant of their behavior, causes them to be self-aware of how they treat people. And that ain't our cross to bear. That ain't our cross to bear. Like, we can't save everyone. And maybe some people don't necessarily need saving. I'm not saying that, but it's like, people who have ugly spirits, send them love from afar. But if you notice them around you starting to suck the joy and the energy, and every time they come around, they're gossiping and talking about other people, it's like, why are you doing that? Someone that finds joy in belittling someone else is weird. Don't do that. Don't come over here doing that. So pay attention to those things. You have to tend to your joy like it's a garden. Keep the weeds out. Water yourself. Everything you take in, the things you consume. I'm really big on music and what I'm listening to. I'm really telling myself right now, y'all. My two top favorite genres every year, Apple Music, Spotify, is gospel and go-go. Now, go-go don't always have the most positive lyrics. However, the sounds, the beats, the joy that I'm affiliated with it, the nostalgia that comes with it brings me joy. Worship music. Worship music. If you do not listen to any gospel music, any Christian contemporary music, anything with just positive lyrics, you're missing out. You're missing out. The things you put into your brain affect how you act. I don't watch a lot of shows that are super violent, whatever. Call me a child. I just don't want to watch that. And if that's what you like and you can bounce back from watching violence and gory stuff and you're fine, good for you, babes. It don't work for me. We all have different things that work for us. But one thing I know to work for everybody is listening to some encouraging worship music. And gospel ain't what it used to be, Gospel ain't what it used to be. We still have some old school bangers, but there's so much fire music. I really, really love Maverick City. I'm always stay in my Kirk Franklin, Fred Hammond bag. I've really recently been into Anita Wilson. I'm going to start sharing playlists with y'all of things I listen to keep me inspired and encouraged. But again, that's another way to tend to your garden. Watering yourself with your thoughts, what you're listening to, what you're reading. Get in your word. Have a little Bible study. Start small. When I first had the desire of learning Bible verses that I wanted to lock in as life verses, I would write them down. I've recently started using flashcards. Find what works for you. Life is going to be a challenge. Life is challenging, but we have to do whatever we can to protect our joy, which is our faith. We got to find a way to protect it. And if you literally have to treat your joy like it's a class, like it's a course, and you need to study and you need to have extra after hours with the teacher, if that's what you need to do to keep it going, sacrifice it. The same way you sacrifice for your job, the same way you sacrifice for your relationships with your significant other and your friends, the same way you sacrifice for your children, your siblings, your family. You got to have the same level of commitment and sacrifice for God. That's the only way that you are going to grow in your faith. That's the only way you're going to grow in your relationship with God. And that's the only way you're going to maintain your joy. Find your joy. Keep your joy. Get into your joy. Do the work. You have to. One thing I want to make clear is just because I have joy and deep joy, it does not mean that I don't deal with sadness. It does not mean that I don't deal with doubt and anxiety and depression don't creep in. That's not what it means. If anything, having joy and faith at my core allows me to feel those things harder. It allows for the heaviness to feel a little heavier, the darkness to seem a little bit darker, you know? When you're locked in with God, He allows you to experience things in a different, unique way. Everything is felt. When you are close with yourself, you're close with God, and that can sometimes cause things to really, really intensify. It can cause things to intensify and those feelings to feel like, wait a second. When I was moving throughout space, less locked in with myself, when I was moving throughout space, less connected to God, I didn't have to feel all these heavy feelings. Well, guess what? That's not how it works when you say yes to God. When you say yes to God, you're saying yes to yourself, and in return, saying yes to experiencing life in a meaningful way. And when you experience life in a meaningful way, things are going to come at you a little harder. It's living on purpose, it's living with intention. And I hate to bust whoever's bubble fresh on their faith walk. This ain't easy. This shit ain't easy. It's a challenge. It's a challenge to choose joy and to pick joy and to choose God, but it's so rewarding. The end goal, the end game is so rewarding. So the sacrifice is worth it. Remembering joy can be very challenging where you're dealing with grief. A few years ago, I experienced a very traumatic situation in my life. And for me, it was probably the hardest time of accountability with God, you know? Even though I was so deeply distraught and broken and hurt and confused and depressed, I had to fight for my joy. You know, it was still there. It was still there. There was a lot piled up on top of it. The grief, the sadness, the anger, the rage, the confusion, all those things were piled up on my joy. But because my faith and my joy were the rock under all that rubble, it shined through and it made that process a little easier. I just really am trying to drive home to y'all that walking with God does not mean everything is always going to be rainbow and sunshines. That's not what it means. Grief will come. That's a part of life. We can't get away from grief. We can't avoid grief. We can't avoid hard things happening. We can't avoid death. We can't avoid people disappointing us deeply. That's just unfortunately not how this works. However, when you gain the understanding that there's a deeper peace, a deeper purpose, a deeper connection to every single thing that will happen in our lives, it makes it easier. In that period of trauma and grief that I was experiencing, where I literally thought I was, listen, y'all, I thought I was going to die. It was so heavy. I could not bear it every day. For anyone who's been through trauma and grief, you understand what it's like for the sun to come up every day and to realize, oh God, I have to carry this thing again. I have to walk through the day with this heaviness like an elephant is stepping on my chest every single day. But for anyone right now who is going through a moment of trauma and grief, I'm here to remind you it gets better. Keep your head up. Keep your head up. It gets better. Be encouraged. It gets better. I know it looks crazy and dark right now. Listen, I've been there. I've been there. The darkest spot. But keep your hope alive. Let that little joy at the bottom of the rubble stay lit. Even if you don't want to have to carry that joy that day. You don't want to smile. You don't want to giggle. You don't want to be, you know, whatever. You don't want to exert that positivity. That's fine. But don't throw it away. Don't throw it away. Let it rest. Let it rest on the rock on which we stand. And that is our faith. That's our firm foundation. That is the Lord. That is God. Joy is a choice. Joy is a choice. And you got to be committed to making the choice to be joyful. And everyone's joy doesn't have to be skipping around. Hey, I'm so and so. It don't have to appear like that. But joy is in how you treat people, how you show up for people. Joy is in your integrity. Joy is in your character and how you move through space. Be intentional about that. Water your joy garden. Make sure you keep the right things in there and the things that don't need to be there out. Thanks for joining me again here at the Neighborhood Podcast. Tell a friend to bring a friend. Everyone's welcome here. See y'all next time.